Hey everyone, welcome to this session of OKR, which is objectives and key results. So this is a framework which has been used quite exhaustively, if I may say so, uh, across the globe, and generally it started in with Google. So it's interesting to see how focusing on a few tactical initiatives and how do you define those tactics and how do you then use it to for your organization's growth, and also how you align it helps align people in the organization to the purpose and the vision of the company so that everybody works in the same direction with the same effort and with the same goals. So that's what we are going to talk about today. So that's what it is. It looks simple, but generally we have found that it takes about 2 to 3 quarters, uh, before you actually get hang of it and you start using it, start monitoring it, and once you start seeing the results, it becomes a lot easier. But yeah, as I said, we're going to learn how what is the process, does it mean. Essentially, a startup course, a startup um, uh, module, if I can call this. So basically, we learn the basics of it, and then how do you write it. So we'll learn how to write it, and then we'll take it from there. So welcome to this session, and we'll move on to the next one. What does this mean? So as I said, objectives and key results. So it's basically an individual way. It's a way for an individual or team or a company to just stay focused and work towards important objectives. So that's important. Most of the organizations, in fact, all the organizations, every organization does have a purpose, a mission, vision. But if you realize that 70% of the organization, according to a research, is not able to align its people, cascade its goals and objectives, and are so bound up with the current work that they are not able to focus on their goals. So that's what it is. It's basically an alignment framework, basically helping us to understand what not to do in addition to what we need to do. And that's the core, to understand and filter out, objectives and identify the core objective that you want to achieve. So it basically comes from a gentleman called John Doerr. So he is the one who took it from Intel, implemented in Google, post that, it just spread like wildfire. And he puts it in a very simple statement that I will, which is then the objective comes in and will be measured by certain key results. So these are some of the quantifiable results. So objective is something that you want to achieve, as let's say getting to the Mount Everest, could be an objective, and results could be in base camp 1 in 10 days, base camp 2 in 12 days, and subsequently. So how if I'm moving in the right direction or not, and then these objectives are basically measurable. So you can also uh, keep a track of it, have a cadence to monitor it, have a review and a governance mechanism. So just to give an example, this is an example here. So an objective, if you see, is a big one, delight our customers. But how do I measure my delight towards the customer? Is increase net promoter score to 52% is just an example there. Reduce revenue, churn by 1%, increase average daily visits to 3.3 per active user. So these are some results that you can measure. If you see here, you can measure weekly, monthly, based on that, and you will know if I'm progressing well or not. And they are flexible because it's aligned to the purpose of vision. If some objectives are not being met, you can always change that. If your results are you're achieving the results and yet you're not getting what you want as terms of objectives, you can always go back and change it. uh, and that's the beauty of it. It is flexible, at the same time aligned to what the business wants, and we don't want to go about doing things which is not adding any value to the purpose of the business. Okay, so setting the context, we will move on to the next module, which is an overview of this. So, objectives and key results is a critical thinking framework and discipline that ensure the collaboration of measurable contributions. So, essentially, it's a collaborative tool. It's basically it aligns, and it's a top-down approach to make sure all people who are working towards that organization or in the organization is aligned to the bigger purpose. So, um, most of the organizations were successful because people have seen results coming out, and these are basically companies like Intel or Google or Zingo. There are many other organizations who are trying to, efficiently tracking their goals and measuring their progress. So, and one thing important here is that it is really looking at the tactical aspect of achieving the goal. Most of the organizations would have a vision, many would have a mission, but then how do you convert that strategy into tactics and those tactics into actions? And this is what the OKR does for you. So it also enables to track the objectives and their outcomes. So essentially, you put a cadence around it, you communicate with people, it has a clarity of purpose, and also aligns people and keeps motivating them if you're hitting the goal or not. Are you running in the right direction? And if you're hitting those goals, it's a win. So people are able to, align to it and work towards further. And it's also empowerment because it cascades, so it doesn't have to be one particular objective. It is broken down into sub objectives, so it just kind of aggregates up. So everybody and anybody who's playing a role will be very proud of what he or she has achieved in this organization, and he would know that, whether the organization is benefiting it from not or not. So this particular session, or what we are talking about, is essentially understanding in depth what it is, and it basically has two components. We are going to talk about it. We will learn some tricks, so to say, to how do you capture it. But as I said earlier, this generally takes 2 or 3 quarters to polish it, get used to it, let people align to it, and more importantly, while using this, you would know what not to do, right? So it's people would know what objectives they have a list approach. We don't want to have a list approach. We really want to have something that we want to do, and also know what not to do in a specific period of time. So it's basically saying what are we going to do in the next 6 months that is aligned to a bigger objective of 2 years, right? And you break it down. Sounds easy, but that's how you need to deliver value, every with high cadence, high frequencies aligned to the bigger goal. It's two parts, as I said. So there's objectives, and there are key results. So as I said, these are only two things that it has. It's nothing else. It's basically to define very specific objectives and measurable actions. And having a good understanding of OKR at top leadership across the organization helps, to helps the organization and the team members to focus better, and also enables us to look at the connections, right from top to bottom, bottom to top. Nobody is lost, so everybody knows that what they are doing has a measurable, is aligned to the bigger goal. So as I said, so it's a visibility. It enables transparency, enables visibility, and it leads to a good, aligned, and focused effort, so that we don't lose out on, or do anything that is not adding value to the business purpose or objective. Right. Coming to the next one. Excuse me. Objectives. So what is it? It's a management strategy. It basically starts, as I said, with the critical thinking framework, and we'll just go back to some history here. So who started it? There's a gentleman called Andy Grove. He's considered the father of OKRs. He introduced it in the 1970s in Intel, where they completely transformed this organization. And you have a very good book by Andy Grove, and I suggest you read that. So essentially, how they decided what to do and what not to do. So he basically started it. Then it was picked up by an investor called John Doerr, and he popularized it in Google and across all the companies he was investing in. Um, and then it went all out. But it essentially, the flavor really comes from Peter Drucker's management by objectives. Right? So that's the history, and it has been implemented in many organizations. If you see, most of the Fortune 500 and startups, most of these are new. Zynga, Sears, Oracle, Intel, and you name them, they are uh, behemoths of business. They have done it, and they continuously deliver value, year on year, month on month, and how do they do that? And probably that's the secret of their success. If you want to read, there's a book by Peter Drucker, The Practice of Management. In case you want to read more about it, I recommend that you go and read it. So that's the history. That's where it comes from. Yeah, it comes from, you would say it comes from an IT background company, but every organization has a product or a process, and they have people around it who are organized around the processes to deliver value. So it really doesn't matter what kind of organization you are, whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, whether you're a startup or an organization. It's important that you understand how to link these objectives. Now, coming to the concept, as I said, it has the result has to be measurable. So it's that's one which is quantified, because when you have a result, you could look at the result and say whether we have done anything good, bad, or are we on track, are we behind, and it takes away the judgment, right? Either it's a zero or a one. Either you have achieved it or you have not achieved it. That's the concept. And as I said, so the frameworks, I'm sure you're now used to this. So OKR objective, a very clearly defined goal, may not be quantified, but the results are needs to be quantified. Generally, one objective would have up to three results, very specific measures used to track the achievement of the goal. So you have a goal, as I said, it could be open-ended, but then results are basically broken down into two or three to make sure the achievement is measurable. Okay. So most of the organizations would have a quarterly planning process. So they look at one whole full year, they break it down into quarters, and every quarter they would have an objective, a very specific objective with key results. So that way you're not waiting for a full year to end and then realize, oh, we didn't achieve the results. Now see how this changes. This is what it is, right? You break it down into shorter cycles. The shorter, the better. So it comes from a month to a week, from a week to every day. Okay, so that's how this system works, right? So you take faster feedback cycles. You get to know, you don't wait for long, but every item, every activity that we are trying to do is aligned to the next bigger cycle of work, which is what I'm doing today, is a part of what I'm trying to achieve in a week. What I'm doing in a week is what I'm trying to achieve in a month. What I'm doing in a month is basically looking at a quarter, and what I'm doing in a quarter is trying to look at what I'm trying to achieve in the end of the year. So, and it's very powerful because it prioritizes, helps you prioritize your initiatives. It ensures that it's measured. You are focused on things of the organization, activities of an organization, which will transform the company maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. Okay. Um, so it's very simple. So I mean, some of the rules that we use here is objectives. Essentially, you have at least 3 to 5 high-level objectives, which the framework has. It's supported by initiatives, plans, activities. It is supported by initiatives, plans, and activities towards achieving the objective. So achieving the objective, but also measuring the results on the way, because if I can't have an objective without a result. So that's important for us to look at the framework. But generally, as I said, it should not be a list approach, a 3 to 5 max, because if a CEO has a OKR at his 3 to 5 OKRs at his level for the quarter, and it cascades down and it starts breaking up, you can imagine how big it becomes. So smaller the better. And these key results, it's measured on a scale. So they say that if you achieve about 60 to 70% of what you had set out for, consider it as done. So it's a great achievement if you set an objective and you achieve 70-80% of it. It's basically measured on a scale of 0 to 1. uh, so basically you are seeing how we are going ahead, what are we covering, how much have we covered, how much have we achieved, how much have we sustained. Okay, so there's a three is to three formula. So three key objectives, each objectives has three key results, right? So as I said, so it's basically, if you look at a trend graph, you can see how this is increasing. If you're achieving the results, are you on track or not? So that's how the gradation is done on a scale of 0 to 100%. But there are, like any other framework, there are mistakes that organizations do. But as I said, you get a hang of it only if about it when you do 2 to 3 quarters, because it's a practice. It's also culture change. People are used to a certain way of working, but this also enables us to align ourselves to what we want to deliver. But you learn by doing, so we can't have a perfect one to start with, but some of to give you a head start, so to say, these are some of the mistakes we should avoid. So basically, we are not taking too challenging or or very absolutely not challenging objectives. Whether it is out of reach, it looks out of reach, or it's very low, that should not be done. Has to be some ambition based targets, and the expectation is that if you can hit 70 to 80% of it in a particular quarter, uh, that's a good show, right? So evaluate your OKRs. So not too challenging, not a lower limit, not very too much outside your hand, outside your scope of uh, thought. So ambition is good, but then it should not be, I want to go to the moon. But there's something that we want to keep as ambitious, and if you're hitting 70 to 80% as a target, that's something that we should be aware of. Setting and forgetting OKRs. Now, we have seen you set the goals, but you don't review, right? So it's part of the leadership program, leadership role, leadership standard work every day to not forget the OKRs. You keep going back, set up a cadence, set up a review, set up a governance mechanism to go back and review. It's a boring job, but that's how leadership works. So you have to discuss the OKRs, you have to update the OKRs. As I said, the important work is a weekly ritual, right? It's a weekly ritual around OKRs to review so that everybody knows this is a non-negotiable. So setting it up, but then forgetting it is a failure. So we should not do that. Hence, we can reduce the quantum. We get used to it, do it in a small area or a small function which is critical. So if you're looking, for example, in a new business development, you start there, try to learn from it, and then you can roll it out. Okay, but the ritual is important, and that's, in our terminology, we call it the leader standard work. There has to be some standard work of cadence or review. Okay. Again, so a list approach, we should not have too many objectives. It should not have a list approach. A maximum of 3 objectives per quarter. If you're able to do that with 3 to 5 key results, it makes a lot of sense. So if you're doing 3 objectives per quarter, you're really looking at 12 objectives, right? So that's a huge number. But then what happens is, it also helps you prioritize and do away what you don't want to do. So, as you know, we started this session by saying that what we should know what we want to do, but we should also know what not to do. So this enables us to not look at many things that we should not be doing in this quarter. But three, as you start growing, three is the optima that we have seen that works. Otherwise, it just explodes as you go down, and we will learn about that. Not measurable key results. So you can just have, if you don't have a numeric number or a quantified number, very difficult to measure. It cannot be activity done or not done. Whether activities should support that result, right? So we are just looking at OKR, but this is supported by the planning, activity, governance, all that functions. So the results has to be quantified. Everything has to be quantified. That's important. If you're not quantifying it, then you have a problem. Not keeping the big picture, so you're not trying to look at, you're missing the forest for the trees. So it's not in a unified direction. You're going in different ways. Somebody is taking an objective which is not connected or linked to the bigger objective of the organization. That leads to disaster, because it ends up into what we call a watermelon syndrome. A watermelon syndrome is what, everybody achieves their OKR. So watermelon is green from outside, you cut it, it's red from inside. So everybody's worked hard, everybody's achieved their OKRs, everybody's achieved the results, but the organization does not reach the goal. That's something that we should not do. People have to be coached. It is also a mindset. So the big picture has to be transparent and visible to all the people who are trying to get into this and you're trying to involve in. But the suggestion here really is that start small, and then as you learn over a 2 to 3 quarters of period, you will get a hang of it. Uh, so the more we understand, the better understanding we have about this whole process, the chances of gaining success is high, in the implementation of OKR. Great. Uh, Moving to the objectives and just a few pointers here. Some of the objectives, as you said, the objectives should be broad, visionary strokes, but relevant and focused, right? So it's definitely big. I want to increase market share. Uh, has but it has to be relevant and focused. So you can't do something that is not relevant. I can have a vision, but if it's not relevant for the business or what you want to do, so take some time off. Try to put some core objectives or whatever level of the organization you are in. Um, you can always ask your leader. So that's important for us to see. It's qualitative. It's qualitative. The objectives are qualitative and describes the desired outcome, not output. So there is a difference between outcome and output. So we are talking about outcome. So what is it? It has to be qualitative. At this objective state, you're not trying to put a number around it or making it quantitative, and obviously break it down to quarterly results. It's like eating the elephant in parts. Smaller it is, the better it is. So quarter is the best, because 3 months is something that the senior management has patience for. That's what we have seen. Once 3 months are over and something doesn't work, they also get impatient. So for us also, when you're looking at OKRs, please look at it as chunks of a quarter, and 12 weeks is good enough. So you don't play around with the time, we play around with the scope. So we reduce the scope but try to finish it in 12 weeks. So that's about objectives. So you run with the, how do you run it is to call for a meeting, talk to them, ensure everyone is given their output and understands the final goal. So you're basically selling your idea. Set one company objective per quarter. So one company objective per quarter. However big or small you are, what is that one thing you want to do? The set objective may have no indicator, but is directly linked to the company overall goal, right? So as I said, it's qualitative. But one objective per quarter is what you can start with. That's how you should start this process, because it's easy to learn, and you will learn, you will fail also. And I'm making the statement that you would come to issues, have face issues there, but if you start doing it, you will get to know. Uh, right. So it's the best practice of setting and communicating company, team, and employee objectives. So if you see company has an objective, you have different functions. Functions will take an objective now, which is aligned to the company objective. The people working in the functions, the HODs will take their own goals. The people reporting to the HOD will have certain objectives, and that's how the cascade happens. Okay, and it's all aggregating, right? So the result at the bottom, when you aggregate up, it goes up to the company level. It's amazing how things add up, and once you do, I can't say enough. Once you try to do that and see how it aggregates, it's fantastic to see achieving those results. Otherwise, what happens in the organization? The people are busy, but the processes don't move, objectives are not met, but people are busy, they're working 10 to 12 hours a day. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure the objectives and the processes work, and people are aligned to that, they are used in a proper manner, and they know what they want to do. Once they go ahead and come to the office or work on the process, they know what they're adding value to. And that's how OKR has been so successful in these big organizations we spoke about. Some of the characteristics, right, of an objective three, basically AIT we call it. So actionable, inspirational, and time bound. Okay, so time bound is obviously quarter. It should inspire people to take some new challenges. So you're solving some new kind of a problem. You're breaking new walls, and it has to be actionable. People should not look at it and say, who's going to do that? It's never been done. There will be some people who will say, it has never been done, it cannot happen. But if you're a startup, you don't have those inhibitions. You have to take an action, because for actions you need resources. So you have to make sure that you can make the action work, right? To make the action happen. So it can. So basically, this is nothing. It's to make sure that nothing is out of the scope. So here we are trying to um, make sure that this actions can be executed independently, which means that there are enough resources, enough time for the resources to go and execute this actionable objective. So that's important for us to understand. It cannot everything converge to the CEO and waiting for the CEO to give a direction, right? So you pick something that is actionable, make it into bit-sized pieces, And at the start it may look difficult, but that's what it is. But something that is actionable, inspirational, something that should excite your employee, something that probably has never been tried before, but maybe something that you're going to try would change the future of the organization. That's it's inspirational to say that we are going to completely change the way we are going to work. So the leader has to make sure the inspiration remains, and has to keep himself or herself motivated to go and do checks, reviews, and the rituals of inspection, and of inspecting it and helping the people to solve the problem. Obviously, a time bound, we spoke about it. It has to be quarterly to ensure people get it done. So 12 weeks is a good time. It has been successful in the 12 weeks. So you break the scope, reduce the scope, and put it in the timeline. So actionable, inspirational, and time bound objectives can really take the company to a different orbit, right? And it also, and once you start doing the cycle, you'll realize that even in a quarter, there's a lot that gets done, because you're so focused on the deliverable, something that you want to do, which is prioritized, and you also know what not to be done. So that's even more important. Coming to key results, so essentially, measuring how far have we gone ahead towards your objective. So it's again from 0 to 1. So if you're starting an objective, you're starting at 0. You're putting a number out there, and it's really distance. It's like running a marathon. You completed a kilometer or 2 kilometers, 5 kilometers. So you're just saying how much have I covered, and it also gives a clear direction, and on what we are trying to achieve really. You see, it's a means to an end. So you're seeing that I have to let's say run 21 kilometers. 21 kilometers is a result. Objective is to run a marathon so that I feel great about long distance running, and then I plan my actions accordingly. What I'm going to run, at what speed I'm going to run the first kilometer, then the fifth kilometer, then the 10th kilometer, and so far and so on. So it really tells me, it gives a clear direction. It always works like a north star, true north. That's what it is. And we're not going to spend time in this, but you know that every key result has to be smart goals, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. We'll not spend time here. It's essentially extremely important. So it has to be extremely specific. You can measure it, quantifiable, something that is not completely out of bounds. So as I said, if you're hitting 70-80% of it, it's great, relevant to the objective that you have selected, and time bound because it's a quarter. That's what you're trying to look at. Uh, so results are really driven in four buckets, right? So we have growth, we have performance, we have revenue, and we have engagement, right? People engagement. So they call it revenue, cash, operations, cost, people, safety. It can be all based on that, right? So you can actually identify the results or select the results based on the objectives, but it is all related to the business that you're trying to get at. Um, so just an example here, smart goals, we've already spoken about it. So they're specific. When I say specific, it's also simple English. People should be able to understand. Then they have, obviously, it's a 0 or a 1. Either you have succeeded or you have not. So if you have not improving on that percentage of the result over a period of time, then obviously I know that we have not done well. So that's measurable. It is realistically possible. Now, there are two schools of thought, until unless one school says that until unless you try, you cannot say if it's realistic or not, right? But this is something that a stretch goal. I could run 15 kilometers, for example. I think I can do 18. Okay, that's good enough because it's just about a 3 kilometer stretch. If I have done a revenue of, let's say, 10 crores, maybe a 12 crore or a 15 crore, I may not want to look at a 25 crore immediately in the next year. But a 12 crore, 15 crore, breaking it up into quarter, achieving the first crore from 10 to 11 will give me even confidence. And then I can keep moving it. So it's not rigid that once I fixed it. No. So it's based on the speed, based on the learning. You can always keep upgrading it, changing it. It helps you be agile, and also pushes your intellect, pushes your effort, pushes the team to to achieve those goals, and also Hence, as I said, it's realistic is again two schools of thought, but put something that people can can associate themselves with it and say, yeah, first when we started, we didn't think we will be able to do it, but that's how it is, right? So think about it. Realistic is realistic and practical, rational. These are words, English. But let's not put something and say, oh, I'm looking at the moon and say how I'm going to reach the moon. Let's not do that. Relevant, obviously, to your objective. I mean, I can't have completely disjointed objectives and key results. Nothing to really talk about here. And then time bound, again and again, we have been talking about it. There has to be a timeline. There has to be relevance to it. But quarter is a timeline that we need to look at, right? Then we leave it to the functions and the teams and the team members to break it down to weekly, daily, hourly goals if they want to. I mean, if their work is more cyclical, rhythmic, they can go down to hourly. But but if it's not cyclical, not rhythmic, no, it's non-cyclical, they can look at a weekly targets, which roll up to a monthly target, which roll up to a quarterly target, and then which eventually rolls up to the yearly targets. And it's amazing how it rolls up. Okay, but the biggest challenge and biggest fight would be to select what to do with this quarter and what not to do, and that's the courage that the leader would always need to show. That's the book we spoke about, the practice of management. It's available on Amazon. It's good book. Essentially, Peter Drucker started this whole thing called management by planning, MBP, which then became management by objectives, and then that's where the OKR actually was born from. Uh, so basically, coming to the end of it, we have OKR examples. So let's see quickly some of them. Sales OKR, right? So that could be for a first quarter, you may want to take, increase Q to recurring revenues. Now see how specific it is. We are not just saying a QT revenues, we are saying recurring revenues. How are we going to, measure it? What are the results? So we increase size by $500 per month. We increase share of monthly subscription versus one-time contracts. Very, very specific. This is the SMART goals that we are talking about here, right? In that first quarter that we are looking at very, very specific results. Annual renewals, or, monthly subscriptions, and average subscription per size. Now, this is how this connection works, really, right? Let's look at another example, the HR OKR. Now, at a company level, as I said, you could have 3 to 5 objectives. So, what are the 3 important things this year for you? The HR, sales, whatever, you can break it up, and that's what it is. So, internal employee engagement is, for example, an objective. How are we going to measure it? We are doing 0 to 3 meetings, doing a fun Friday, all hands meeting with an external motivational speaker, right? So very specific. If you're not doing this, these are the results. If you're not doing this, you will know that we have done or not done. So, for example, here again, starting with 10 teams and 5 departments, 0 to 1, done. Essentially, either 0 or 1. Either we have done or we have not done, right? So that's how we are measuring the results. And then there's a percentage out of the 10 teams or 5 departments, how much have we covered? Conduct face-to-face interviews with 48 employees on their needs, right? So 0 to 48, that's the scale. At the end of these results, you will see there is a scale, right? Everything has a scale. How are you going to measure that scale? 0 to 1, 0 to 48, extremely, extremely specific, right? So this is some example here. Finance OKR, annual budgeting and business planning process. How are we going to measure it? 5 budget proposals before 1st of September, right? So 5 before the next quarter, A4 planning session, final budget by the end of November. That's the closure, some of these results that we're going to check. So if you're not doing it, if you're not really measuring the performance of your improvement, you would immediately know that we are not going to hit our objective for the quarter. Okay, so you're not waiting for a year, right? Generally, that's what happens. We have KPIs. Yeah, we will have KPIs, but those KPIs should be linked to the KRAs, which is result areas, which in fact are related to the objectives, which are then related to the purpose and the mission of the organization. Okay, so that's extremely important. I'll show you how the cascade happens. So this basically is an alignment guide, right? That needs to be done, what needs to be done, and when it needs to be done. Let's look at some more examples. A product management OR. If you're looking for a new product, so implement a new 360-degree product planning process, right? A new 360-degree product planning process. How am I going to measure it? Finish documentation, of clear roles between sales, marketing, design, and development. So all the documentation is one measurable. Now, if you see, um, everything is quantified, right? So whether it's so implement and decide on input methods from design and development back into product management. uh, so decide and implement input methods, right? So when I do a process map, when I look at input methods, I can actually measure them, right? So and the growth is really looked at, what percentage of how much percentage have we been able to implement. Then we are marketing OKRs, implement a newsletter. Marketing, this is not sales. So we looked at sales. Okay, now we are looking at a subscriber base of at least 5% per week. We are looking at CTR percentage. We are looking at content strategy, key message, and topic structure for next 6 months. So you finalize the content strategy, key messages, and topic structure. So this is an action, right? In order to do a content strategy, there could be a project plan for that. There could be activities, there could be review and cadence. So imagine if you have these five for your organization. Every week, every month, they are reviewing it, and there's hardly a reason that we are not going to hit those targets as we are looking at. So that's how powerful these OKRs are. And this is another way, one of the, so you can have bifurcation also. That's what the marketing goal tells us. It has to activate user testing. So again, 4 to 4 phase, at least 4 face-to-face testing sessions, at least 15 video interviews. But that's the crux of OKR. Everything needs to be measurable. It could be a lead indicator, it could be a lag indicator. It has to be an actionable, and we need to be able to measure it. Okay. Um, and once you do it the 2 quarters, you will see an immediate impact, that's for sure, because at least from the activity front, from a result front. But if sometimes what happens, if you don't see a match between that you're achieving, um, I mean, hardly there will be a case where you see that you achieve the things on the right hand side, but you're not achieving your objective. Hardly, because that's how it is thought through, right? Then OKRs are born out of purpose and vision, as I said, so it comes from purpose and vision. So this part is that most practical part. OKR 1, OKR 2, these three OKRs that we looked, and then it goes down to, from company, it goes down to team, from team, it goes down to the individual. So that's how it adds up, right? So these two OKRs of the individual will aggregate to a team OKR. From the team OKR, all these three will aggregate to a company OKR. The company OKR, it comes from the vision and the purpose of the organization. So this is the tactical part. Okay, this would be the strategy, and the action really happens here. Right? So actions are happening here. It's all it just aggregates and moves out towards it. So that's how the alignment occurs. So on a timeline, if you see, you're looking at maybe a Q4 goal, but in the first quarter or quarter two, there are some OKRs that we want to deliver as a company level. Then similarly in the teams level, this is what we want to deliver, and each of these OKRs have that key results that you are measuring on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and that's what the leadership needs to do. Right? So that's how. So a quarter on quarter, we are trying to achieve. So we have an annual goal, and that's what it is breaking down into. Let's say if this is A, so this is A1, A2, A3, and that's what we achieve. As we go ahead. Right, so that's basically what it is. And so essentially, just to go back and talk about it, what we covered was the fundamentals of OKR, what are they and how they work. We spoke about the origins of OKR, so Andrew Gove, John Doerr, uh, Peter Drucker, and why it was widely adopted, and which companies did that. OKR framework and key principles. So essentially, objective has to be, actionable. It has to be inspirational, and it has to be time bound, as we learned. And key results are like SMART goals, so they have to be interconnected, and then they have to cascade. So leadership has to make sure that the review and governance happens. We spoke about that. We spoke about some of these companies, errors that these companies make, or mistakes that they make. they are writing an OKR, they are not reviewing it, they are putting something extremely out in the future, they're not able to see that, right? So people are not aware of what you want to do, they are not connected, or there are too many things that we have taken on the plate and we don't know how to spend time. And then we saw some of these HR, sales, OKRs that we just talked about, and the marketing OKRs, just as an example. Okay, so that's what we covered. And so before we close, I think it's a very powerful way to set, track, and achieve ambitious goals. So this is important. You're setting it, you're tracking it, and achieve ambitious goals. When implemented well, they'll be able to bring in transparency, focus, and alignment. So these very three things that they bring among people, among teams, because we need the teams to work together towards it. So to close, basically, we should always remember this. I mean, the objectives are bold and inspiring. Uh, KRs which would be, so these are O, this is KR. The KR should be measurable and specific, so you remember the SMART goals, and regular check-ins to ensure accountability. So this is the most important part, right? So you could go wrong here, but if this is in place, you will at least know that these are wrong and things are not moving, and you're going to set the place up. So three extremely important parts that you should remember, and to take it forward from here. Try to do it for 2 to 3 quarters, and we are always here at SAN to help you, organize yourself, and if you need any help, we're always there. So all the very best. I hope you it adds value to uh, what you plan to do as a leader in your organization or a startup that you have. Here's wishing you all the best, and keep yourself in the loop. And please expect more videos. We will keep uploading them. So stay tuned. Bye bye. Have a good day.